Now, I do want to say a word about this. Because the things that Jesus has described that is going to happen, that's going to kind of be the ramp up to the return of Christ, these are some pretty bad things. I mean, you got false Christs and false prophets. I mean, just con men deceiving people, that's pretty bad. But wars, famines, pestilences, people turning against one another, betraying one another. And this brings to mind, so there's an acceleration of a proliferation of evil. And in my experience, one of the major things that critics of, skeptics of Christianity bring against the Bible, bring against God, bring against Christ is what is referred to as the problem of evil or the problem of pain. They say that this good God supposedly couldn't exist if there is evil and suffering in the world. But Jesus seems to be saying there's going to be quite a bit of that going on. Here's basically how the argument would go, that God is omniscient, he's all-knowing, that he's omnipotent, he's all-powerful, and that he's good, he's all good, that God doesn't do evil. But if God exists, if such a God exists, then evil would not exist, because if he's all-knowing, he knows what would happen. If he's all-powerful, he could stop it from happening. If he's all good, he would want to stop it from happening. However, they argue evil does indeed exist, and so therefore, such a God could not exist. Now, there are reasons why this fails logically as an argument, just rationally it doesn't stand up, and there are reasons why we as Christians should not be disturbed by the reality of evil in the world. Not that we shouldn't be bothered by evil. Obviously, we who are walking in the Spirit, our consciences are burdened for the darkness and the suffering that we see around us. But it should not shake our faith. Whenever we experience evil, see it or experience it, it should not be something to which we are then motivated to shake our fist at the heavens as if it were God's fault. So how does it fail logically? Let me just give this fairly quick, because philosophers have long known this. It has not been a serious argument. In order to say that if God exists, then evil can't, you must be able to show that God would not have a morally sufficient reason to allow evil. And there is no possible way you could know that. You're not all-knowing. I'm not all-knowing. There are so many intricate factors that go in the world that you couldn't possibly know whether or not God has a good reason. And so you logically cannot argue that. And then there are what other philosophers and theologians will offer that are called theodicies. They are answers for why there is evil in the world. There's the idea of free will. The reason there's evil in the world is because God gave mankind free agency, that we're able to make choices, good or bad, and we choose bad. That's why there's evil in the world, because we chose so. But free will is a rather important and valuable feature of life. How many times we tell ourselves over and over again in art, in books, in movies, and music about the wonder and beauty of free will? A lot of times in kind of comical fashions. You ever seen, there was an older one, they did a remake, Stepford Wives? You ever see that movie? Where it's a bunch of guys in a town, they decide they want to get rid of their wives, so they replace their wives with robots that do everything they want and just are always wonderful and complimenting and always tell them what they want to hear and do what they want to have done. Right? And then the main character is like, well, I don't want that wife. I actually want a real relationship with a real person, real love, who's really loving me back, even when I want the good with the bad. And we tell ourselves those stories over and over again. If there's any sci-fi nerd kind of people out there, it's a very common story in a lot of different movies where you'll have the future and someone has discovered, oh, well, the problem with mankind is all these feelings we have, so we got to get rid of that. And so what ends up happening is now everybody is just emotionless little robots going through life, not really choosing to be able to do anything. They're just kind of following their little track. And the hero of the story are the ones who say, no, we won't live like that. And the pain and the suffering is worth being free. And so they set society free. And we tell ourselves these stories over and over and over again. Look at the crowd I'm dealing with. Any Garth Brooks fans? Right? the dance. I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Right? Because if I'd have known, I could have missed the pain, but I would have had to miss the dance. We tell ourselves this over and over again, that the pain is worth the freedom, that there are rewards that come from freedom. There's the idea of soul building, that the reason God allows there to be adversity and hardness in life is because as we overcome it, we grow and we mature. There's the idea that there is a greater good, that this negative thing will happen now, but it's going to set off a series of events where something greater is going to happen down the line. Personally, I think that all three are true, and we can't know in any given situation which one or ones are at play. So it's not logically possible to say that evil therefore disproves God. Quite the opposite, actually, because in order to have evil, you must have good. Right? You can have good without evil. You cannot have evil without good. I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, the shadows prove the sunshine. And if you're going to have evil, that means you have to have good. And if you're going to have good, you have to have a source of good. You have to have God. If you're going to have a moral law, you have to have a moral law giver. So actually, the fact that there's evil in the world proves that God exists. But there is evil in the world. So how do we make sense of it? I mean, we can talk logic, and we can make sense of it, just, okay, so God is good, and that's it, all that. But it's real. It happens. It hurts. So how do we make sense of it? Do we just say, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways? All right, moving on. Well, we can try. He does. But realistically, that doesn't get the job done. A few things that we know about God and about life that should help shape our perspective on this. There's going to be three, and because we're Baptist, I'll make them all start with the same letter. It's going to be dominion, depravity, and deliverance. Dominion, depravity, and deliverance. First thing is dominion. God created the world, and he said, hey, now let's make mankind. Let us make them in our image, in our likeness. Male and female, he made them. And what did he say? Immediately after creating mankind, he says that he gave us dominion over the earth. That we were to have dominion and subdue it. God made a perfect world free of evil, gave mankind dominion over the earth. Part of that dominion was that we were to bring order into the disorder. See, we tend to sometimes think of the whole earth as like the Garden of Eden. The Bible's pretty clear. He created the Garden of Eden, but the rest of the world was wilderness, untamed. And the command to mankind was to go into the untamed earth, extending Eden. Go out there in the wilderness and make it look like Eden. That was the command. Order into disorder. We're supposed to be people who overcome darkness, who overcome chaos, who overcome the disorder and the danger, not who are spared from it. That wasn't our charge. Avoidance of pain is not our primary concern. Our primary concern is to overcome, not to escape. Second, we have depravity. As I'm sure you're all aware, even though you're kind of swell, decent folks I enjoy knowing, we're not all that good. That's one of those things that's kind of hard for some people to say. It's popular in our culture. No, we're all good. You're all basically good. Oh, sure, you make mistakes, but, people, we're basically good. Are we? Are we? Sure, let's take a little bit of time. Let's do the quiz. You want to do the quiz? There's some people shaking their head. No, let's not do it. Let's do it. You ever told a lie? You ever tell a lie? If your hand's not up, you're telling one right now. Right? Okay. Let's see, another 10 commandments. Blasphemy. You ever blaspheme? Blasphemy? Well, you already told me you're a liar. Come on. Right? You ever steal anything? You would ever steal anything? All right, what do you call people who steal things? Thieves. Okay, so there's 3 out of 10. We've already admitted that we're lying, thieving, blasphemers. Do we want to go on? Can we stop there? Right? Mankind has sinned and has fallen. Adam and Eve disobeyed God. And here's the thing. Creatures reproduce after their kind. Adam and Eve disobeyed God. They're now fallen. And then they have kids. What are their kids going to be? Fallen. That's how we are. It's the state that we exist in. And because we're fallen, because we have an inclination to sin, as we disobey, we create pain. The world with destruction and evil and sorrow and all of this in it that we want to shake our fist at God for, He didn't make it, we did. We made the world the way it is. The presence of evil and suffering in the world is a lesson to us about the seriousness of our sin. And the depravity of the human race cannot be overstated. It amazes me that people want to think that we're basically good. Have you read a history book? Don't confuse being nice with being good. We live in a society where politeness and manners and civility has kind of been cultivated, but don't confuse niceness with good. Evil knows how to put on a good act. Most people actually don't sin, not because of goodness, but because of consequences. If you think of the reasons why it's like, I want to do that, and you know you're not supposed to, why don't you? Because you'll get in trouble. Whenever you're a kid, you look at the cookie jar and you think, ooh, but Mama counted the cookies, so she'll know if one's missing, and I don't want to get in trouble, right? That's not because you're such a wonderful little angel who decided, not to take a cookie because it's wrong, just because you didn't want to get in trouble. And that's how the progression goes as we go through life and the different things that we're tempted to do something wrong, and very seldom is our response, no, I want to honor the God of the universe and do what is right. Rather, it is the cost is too high if I get caught. That's kind of how mankind are. We've talked before, the atrocities in history that have been committed by mankind, they're committed by regular folks. Holocaust, slavery, right, the gulags, the genocides in China and Cambodia and Rwanda, those are regular people doing that. That wasn't just some special group of especially dark and evil people from that society. Those are regular people. Abortion, those are regular people doing that. So we were created to have dominion, but we are depraved. And third, there is deliverance. There is deliverance. We will be delivered from sin. Romans 5:8 says that God demonstrates His own love towards us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Right? Any who would believe, whosoever. Put your faith in Christ. Be saved from your sin. By the way, that's one of the reasons that as we look on evil, the one thing we cannot conclude is that it's because God doesn't love us. He's already proven His love to us on the cross. Second, that we are delivered from judgment. Romans 8:18 says, "For I have considered the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us." With heaven on the horizon, the things that we endure in this life are not fit to be compared. And as this life, as eternity rolls on, and this life is in the rearview mirror growing more and more distant, the pains and the sorrows of this life will grow to be a distant memory as the joys and the glories of heaven proceed on. So yes, the bad stuff is going to continue. Jesus says it's even going to increase. And the end will come. And as we endure all of this, we can be sure that it's not God's doing, it's ours. But there will be a deliverance from it. And so the evil and the pain of this world should not be our focus. It's what we are to overcome. It's not what we are to look at as the defining thing of our experience. It is an obstacle that God has said, bring light into the darkness.